Welcome back to Dangerous Rhetoric. This is episode 87. Before I jump into it, once again, I will remind everyone, like, comment, subscribe, give us your money if you want to donate and help us do this. We just got our second strike on this channel, so we might get nuked off YouTube soon. Who knows? We kind of expected that. But if we do disappear from YouTube, you can always find our content on dangerousrhetoric.com, which is hosted on Rumble. It's on Spotify. It's on all the places. With all of that said, today we have a very special guest. We are joined by the based and the beautiful and the hilarious Kitty Demure, drag queen extraordinaire.
Woo! Hi, Dan and Brentley. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you, devoting some of your time to having these conversations. You recently appeared on Fox, and I've been seeing you appear in some other interviews around the internet. And you're making quite a sensation as one of the only drag queens who is speaking out against this new phenomenon over the last few years of kids appearing at drag events. So we're going to get into that. And I also want to get into a bit of your backstory. So maybe we can start there. Like, where are you from? When did you first get into drag?
Well, hi, you guys. Thanks for having me. I'm from Southern California. And I'm born and raised here. I've always lived about an hour east of Los Angeles, in an area they call the Inland Empire, the meth capital of the world.
Oh my God.
And I'm fairly older than what a lot of people think I am. Growing up, I was very influenced by the band Kiss and Queen and David Bowie. And after the, androgyny was all the thing in like late 70s and 80s. And
people are acting like that's like a new thing now. Like they like discovered the wheel. I'm like, guys, it's just been done already. Like,
no, it's like us back then when we did it, we were really being stunning and brave. Now you're just following the pack.
Yeah.
But back then, it was a big deal. I started wearing makeup to high school, and I was part of the whole like new wave and the pre-goth era. There was a thing. There was kids wore black before goth. Right. I think they called death rock or something. I don't know, but so it was normal to go to high school dressed. I guess with eyeliner. It was very acceptable for boys to wear eyeliner in high school. Yeah. I started adding new layers to it. I was really into Boy George, and which is another, influence, a pop icon influence. And the thing is, we did all of this, and sexuality never became an issue. It's just fashion, and people just did it. Yeah. And if you liked it, you did it. If you didn't like it, people would, are you guys censored?
We're not even monetized.
No,
we're probably not going to get monetized.
We'll probably, honestly, the channel will probably be nuked off.
So you can drop some fucks and shits and stuff. Yeah.
Well, you would think in high school my name was fat, and it's all day long. And you know what? Back then people could beat you up, and you could stand up to them, and stand your ground and actually build some character. Nowadays you can't. But that's basically my nutshell story before doing drag.
And how many years have you been doing drag?
It took me a while to actually get on a stage. I first got into the nightclub scene working, and then I worked myself into helping produce shows, manage drag artists, putting together, stage acts, lighting, sound, camera, everything to produce a show. And, I've always loved drag. And I said, this is a perfect opportunity for me to actually do it rather than just go around in my everyday life wearing makeup.
Yeah.
So I tried it, and I tried it at a much later age than I should have. It's really a young man's game. As far as like the local drag, they like to see you shablam, death drop, do the splits, all that. And, I'm closer to the rest home than I am high school. Yeah. So I can't compete with that. So I did a competition. I did a few numbers like that. And then COVID hit, and I found my audience online. That's where it all blew up for me.
Yeah, a lot of people's entire career path changed because of all of that stuff. I guess my next question would be, when did you start to notice that something was amiss with the blurring of boundaries with minors and drag shows? And what was the thing that really kind of where it clicked in your head and you decided, I need to say something about this?
It was I started talking about 3 years ago when I started seeing the drag queen storybook hour. And I thought about, I'm a very open-minded person naturally. If you're a homosexual and you dress up as a woman, you're naturally an open-minded person, I would think, or you would hope so. But I saw that and I just started thinking about it, and I'm like, what value is there in this? And then I saw someone that I had known from the club do it. And when I saw this person, I couldn't believe that this person would actually be in charge of educating children. At that moment, I knew they do not vet these people. They just want to get someone with a penis and throw makeup on them and put them in front of children. That is really the vibe that I got from that. I mean, I've known drag queens that are prostitutes, porn stars, they're drug addicts, alcoholics. Not saying they're all that. If you just say some, people will say you're saying all. So I want to make that very, very clear. Don't put words in my mouth. When anybody who hears this or clips it up, not every drag queen's a drug addict, prostitute, or porn star, but many are. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I saw this person, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I see the way they're dressing and the way they're speaking and the content that they're reading. I start thinking, well, this isn't like just a fun, innocent activity for children. This is an indoctrination. This is something other than what they're packaging this as. And then I looked at the author, the person who actually created Drag Book Storybook Hour. Her name's Melissa. I forgot her last name, but all of her literature is what was the approved reading materials. Then I started thinking, well, this is just a capitalistic venture for this woman.
Yeah, smart.
And so I just saw it for what it was, and like, this is of no value to children. They're in fact, they're making us look bad. They're making the drag community look bad. They're making the gay community look bad, and they don't even know that they're looking bad to like at least half of this country. And I don't know. I didn't like being portrayed in that light, and I didn't want everybody to think that represented me, and that's why I said something.
So that's much the same, motivation why Brent and I started the podcast. Well, Brent actually, he had a solo channel that he started. What was it, like 2018?
January of 2019.
Yeah, and that was your main motivation, right, for doing that? Was like
Well, I saw little Desmond is Amazing go viral, and he just kept popping across my Twitter feed, and I was like, I cannot.
Yeah. We're just like, we need to say something because we need to let people know, like, hey, this doesn't represent all of us. There are many gay, lesbian, and trans people out there, too, who disagree with this stuff. Bisexuals, too. Sorry, guys. Who disagree with this stuff, and don't want it to reflect on all of us because, we know that there is a stigma about us and predators and things like that. And it took many years to kind of get rid of that stigma. And now it feels like we're going backwards. And what I noticed is the people who don't want to say anything about it and maybe do disagree, they think that somehow saying something about this stuff is what's reviving the stigma. When what they're not seeing is it's the opposite. By not saying something, by not drawing that line and saying, hey, that doesn't represent all of us, that's what's reviving the stigma. That's what's making conservatives, they'll flee further into their conservatism the more they see this stuff getting pushed on kids. And if we just left the kids alone, and kept adult things in adult spaces and let kids have their childhood, there wouldn't really be as much of an issue here with this stuff. It would be the same old conflict with conservatives that we've been dealing with. But it's hard to blame them for reacting in the way that they are reacting when we're seeing this stuff too. And it's also abhorrent to us.
And what's funny? You bring up the conservatives, and I get all these like these gays and drag queens, whatever, attacking me, saying, "Oh, you're a pick me. You're a pick me," and and they're gonna ditch you as soon as they're done with you. And what I tell them is, I go, you think I'm employed by them? No, I have just as many people over there who don't like me as on your side.
Right.
And there's just I fight with the conservatives, the religious right, all the time. They'll tell me, we don't want your help, we don't want your videos, we want you just to disappear. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not here for you. I'm here for me, and I'm here for what I represent. And I'm not even religious. So first of all, I don't even have that in common with the right. So it's like the people on the left, so-called right, they think that I'm somehow a pick me, I'm a plant, I'm employed, I'm here to cause waves. And yeah, I'm here to cause my own waves. I'm here to speak up for myself. And I'm not part of this hive mind of the LGBTQ community. Yeah. I'm a H. I'm a homosexual. You haven't even included me in your alphabet. But anyway,
I see it's about the kids. That's what this is about ultimately. And if we happen to have some people that we have to ally with who perhaps don't totally like us or maybe find us repulsive or abhorrent, I'm kind of okay with that at this point. If it's a matter of protecting the kids, if like Matt Walsh doesn't totally like me, I don't really care. Ultimately, I know that what Matt Walsh is doing is bringing some light onto these very important issues, and that's what I care about most. We could address the other things later. For now, let's put that to the side and let's all get together and say, hey, can we like draw these hard lines again that we need with kids? That's what it comes down to,
Well, that's what adults do. That's what they do. I tell the supposed community of love, you guys ran off and just continued partying and living your best lives. But you are aware that there are 50% of this country is conservative, and they have children too. Yeah. They actually have gay children and trans children. And all you've done is demonize half this country with your rhetoric and the things that you say and believe. And while you've done that, you've actually abandoned a lot of gay people and trans people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people like us, we are still in the trenches. We are still doing work while they're not anymore.
That's true. That's true. Another thing I think it's important to acknowledge is that in a sense, and I guess I'm speaking more about the moderate right and moderate left, but like you need some conservative values and you need some liberal values. And this is why I kind of consider myself a more moderate, although I lean more conservative now as I've aged, which is normal from what I understand. But, what it comes down to is there are certain traditions that I think have value and that we should conserve them. That's what that means. But at the same time, I think, rigid traditionalism could also stagnate a society. So we kind of need a balance. We need the two sides to realize that they actually need each other for real true progress to happen. Go too far left, it's just a pit of chaos. All boundaries are dissolved and, morality is just thrown out the window completely. Go too far to the right and it's just rigid structural boundaries where there is no room for innovation or thinking outside the box, and that's bad too. So you can find, a form of authoritarianism from either side, and we're just against authoritarianism. If the right ever swung back toward that, we'd be calling them out on their shit too. Just what it comes down to is right now, it's the radical left. They're the ones who are the authoritarians, and they're the ones who are at the helm of Hollywood and academia and mainstream culture. So that's why we're calling them out more. But look, the pendulum swings back the other way. We will be there talking about them too.
Well, yeah. And, it wasn't even until 2015 or 2016, I even found myself over on this side. I've always been a lifelong, done what I'm supposed to do Democrat, according to the community. But no, this is actually fairly new for me. And, and it's also quite a bit of an experiment to see all the hate and homophobia and racism, and I'm looking for it still after many Trump rallies, after many protests against Antifa, actually getting tangled up with the Proud Boy crew. I'm still looking for all the racism that I'm supposed to be afraid of.
Yeah. Sorry, it's loud. Yeah, New York City.
And then there's the hospital. There's the hospital, literally like a block away. So anytime there's like fire or police or an ambulance, it's always like, which is great for,
you must have had nonstop ambulances during COVID time.
Nonstop. Yeah. No, actually, we went up and surveilled the hospital because they had this little like testing center set up outside. It looked like a little like military camp, and so we were going over and checking that out regularly. Also, they had they had the refrigerated truck for all the bodies because they couldn't store the bodies in the regular way, so they were putting them out onto a truck. So it was like
there was like one incident of that, and the media blew it up into this thing like, oh my god, the hospitals are
but they did that on purpose.
Of course
like,
they did,
because they said that you could not store them in the normal way. So of course there's this like, okay, now what do we do? It's like, also the truck, and
every day for like the first 4 or 5 months, they would do this like 7 p.m.
the clap
for healthcare workers, where everyone would lean out the windows or go on the roof, lean out the windows and clap and scream and make noise.
Pans. It drove my dog. My dog would just start barking and running around the apartment because he didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, and then eventually we kind of got sick of that.
We started yelling back.
So we started going up on the roof with a megaphone and saying, hello, what are we doing? Why are we still closed? We're destroying the economy. What the hell are we doing? And people would yell back at us, and we'd be like, hey, I have a right to make noise too if you have a right to make noise up here. So
amazing. It's amazing.
Interesting times.
I had a friend who went to a Martin Luther King hospital in Los Angeles after a report from there, and they lived like a block away.
Okay.
Went over there, and there was absolutely nothing going on. And it was like, no, we experienced it here in Los Angeles. The West Coast, the same. It's like, where are the dead bodies on the street? Where's the everything happening? Nothing's happening. There's no ambulances, no sirens. All this death and destruction is going on, and nothing.
Yeah, people were acting like it was the literal Black Plague, and but let's not go too deep into that, because our last strike with Mark Changizi, which was an episode all the way from like May, got reported, and that's what we talked about, the mandates and masking in particular. We think
although they did relax their mask guidance. Sure,
but I don't know. We think someone's like targeting us now because Brent recently went to a protest in Vermont. I don't know if you're familiar with Fred Sargent and what happened to Fred Sargent.
No.
So Fred Sargent was one of the original founders of the first gay liberation march in New York City, which later became Pride.
Okay.
And he was present at every day during the Stonewall riots as well. He was there. So he's basically like a gay rights pioneer, like legend.
Icon.
And I was going to bring him up, so this is a perfect time to get into him. So he attended a first protest at Vermont that Brent wasn't at. And he brought a sign there. And I'm going to ask you what you think about this sign. But he brought a sign that said, it had the red circle with the cross through it. And it said, blackface and woman face. And it had the cross through it.
Did he really?
Yes. So
and then on the other side, gay, not queer.
Gay, not queer, it said on it. And what he means by that is
Fred Sargent has been called queer.
Well, at the time
as a slur.
At the time of gay liberation, this is what this whole like queer movement doesn't understand. At the time of
they don't remember yesterday. They're like Dory from friggin' Finding Nemo.
At the time of gay liberation, that term was a term that you heard used against you with vehemence when you were getting
I remember that.
Into the ground, when you were getting beat up and all that stuff. So many from that era still look at that word.
I'm sure, Kitty, you've been called queer in a mean and maligning way. I know I have. I grew up in the 80s and 90s.
Queer, fairy, which you don't have Fruit Loop.
All those things.
All of it.
So he attended this protest. He had that sign, and they, a couple of them,
the Troon Squad.
they poured coffee over his head. They knocked him to the ground.
Yep.
Trans activists, non-binary people, all the these queer people, knocked him to the ground, and it was kind of a watershed moment. It actually awoke a lot of people after that incident, because it made them realize, like, wow, like we're actually knocking down original gay liberation rights people who are trying to stand up against, stand up for sex-based rights. That's what he was doing.
Right.
But I wanted to ask you what you thought.
The reason you told him that story, though, was because I went back up. We went back up to do a reaction protest. This group that attacks Fred Sargent is called Outright Vermont. And they were having a fundraiser where they were raising money to transition children. So this was for things like cross-sex clothing and for like medical consultation for people who can't afford it and all that stuff. And so we went back to protest the fire truck pool. And
With
Fred and a couple, the guy from Disaffected, Josh Slocum. He's another local up there in Burlington. And so we went back and, caused a muck for a day at their little event. And so that's how they learned who I am. And so now they're like,
they're probably targeting the show now.
They're big on mass reporting. They've gotten Josh, Chris Felker, and Josh's producer Kevin all booted off of Twitter by mass reporting. Yeah.
They also lost Josh's job as well.
Yeah, well, they got Josh fired from his job allegedly. Well, it's complicated.
People are vicious. They're vicious.
They are very vicious.
We are really, people think that it's, people play around on Twitter, but when you actually stake a position and start speaking out and get involved, they come for you viciously. And
well, before we get into that, because I do want to ask, Kitty about his experiences with being attacked by them. But I wanted to ask, I guess, what your thoughts were on Fred's sign, no black face, no woman face. There are people who look at drag, not just trans, because that's the extreme of it, but even just drag, dressing up as the other sex, as similar to blackface, as something that, is kind of offensive in that sense. And what do you think of a criticism along those lines? Do you think that argument is valid?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'll admit it. I mean, it's something I'm going to change what I'm doing, but I could see the connection, and I could see why. Naturally, I can see why women would be offended by the way some men are portraying them in public or from a stage. I get that. And I do understand that the whole idea of men dressing up originally was because women weren't allowed to perform, back in the day. And that's men dressed as women. So one may even say it's misogynistic or a product of the patriarchy. All those arguments could be made. I mean, I look at it as a form of theater. I never go out looking like this. I just do it for online stuff, pictures, whatever, entertainment, or now it seems political reasons. But sure, I could see that, and I can see why women would be offended by it, and I don't get mad at them for it. Yeah. I've actually started saying, when people are attacking me, you're not really a drag queen. You don't do, you're not on stage, and you don't do this. I go, fine, then just call me a woman image appropriator. then call me that. I don't care what you call me.
There's the flip side of that too. There are women who do drag as well, who dress as men. Should we look at them and say, hey, you're wearing, the costume of a man and you're making a mockery of them? I think if it's done in the form of entertainment, there should be a bit of leeway there. But at the same time, I can see why people would say, well, isn't that making the argument for blackface as well? And I don't know. Like you, I can see why women would look at it and be like, hey, that kind of makes a mockery of womanhood.
Right. And I don't want to take, I'm not going to belittle their opinions or whatever. And I could just say, yeah. And I've done acts that probably are not very flattering. Oh, well, I know I have, that aren't very flattering to certain women. But, but like anything, there are people who like it and people who don't. And if you don't want to watch it, then just don't watch it.
Don't watch
it. Like my partner, for instance, he's black. He doesn't care about blackface. He thinks it's funny. It's comedic. There are things that are just funny, and we laugh at them. And to me, it's almost like, I can't really laugh at something unless it's a little offensive, a little stereotypical, a little wrong, maybe hurting somebody. I mean, otherwise, what are we all going to laugh at? I don't know. But then again, I see some of these things these kids are coming up with that I just do not see humor in whatsoever. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know, is funny dying?
Yeah, I don't know. Zoomer humor is definitely its own thing. Some of it is funny to me. Just I don't know, because I think some of it is just deliberately supposed to be awkward, and I kind of find some.
But also this disjunction between the generations and our cultural understanding is normal to a certain degree. Yeah,
that is normal.
I mean, we didn't. I know the boomers, for example, didn't get us '90s kids when we were growing up.
Oh no.
They thought we were all crazy. They thought Dungeons and Dragons was satanic. I mean, come on, guys, it's Dungeons and Dragons.
No, I remember that. And what the funny thing is, I have a great relationship with my mother. She's a boomer. She still doesn't get what I do. She still wants to. She was so. Do you want to be a woman? And if you don't want to be a woman, then why do you dress like that?
Why do you dress like that?
I'm like, Mom, the same reason why I used to put on a Taco Bell uniform when I worked at Taco Bell. It's just
Part of the job.
it's part of a job, part of a hobby, part of art, whatever. But there are some things that some generations will just not get, and that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with that.
So, speaking of this as a job, on Fox, you were asked, why are these drag queens who are doing this in front of kids doing it? And I recall, your answer, you said most of them are probably just doing it for the money.
Yeah.
And
I don't think they're all wanting to molest children. No.
Yeah. I think there's probably some truth to that.
And again,
too.
I think this is what people, drag queens, like anybody else, are just people. And drag is a niche commodity that if somebody's willing to pay you for your drag, your performance, I mean, you'll take that money.
Yeah.
And then, as
plus the parents are probably talking up and like, this is so great. Our kids are learning all this stuff about inclusivity and all that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they're probably like eating that up, sure, whatever. Yeah. This puffing up the ego. But at the same time, at the end of the day, it's really just, they're performers. They're paid to perform. They're doing the performances that they do normally. They don't really, some of them might change them, but I've seen some performances that look like they were not, they were obviously intended for adult audiences.
Yeah. Right.
And it's a little shocking when you see it, children there, especially when there's nudity involved or anything else.
Yeah. Well, I got to that place like not 20 years ago. I'd say about 15, 12 years ago to this place right now when I would go to Pride in Los Angeles or in Long Beach, and I would see children there alongside, we're just kind of walking down this walkway through Pride, and you see these transsexual men or trans women with breast implants that are, out to here, and they're exposed, and they're wearing assless chaps and dildos strap-on dildos, people in different kink masks and stuff. And then I see a child, and I'm not the person with the boobs. I'm not the parent, but I'm embarrassed. I'm like, why do I want to be in this environment watching people's kinks and sexual fetishes and orientations around children? I don't know how you could even enjoy yourself.
So that's kind of how I look at the whole phenomenon now with drag shows. Is they say, some of them, they say they're trying to make a more friendly, family friendly drag show. And to me, the point of drag is it's supposed to be bawdy. It's supposed to be lewd. It's supposed to be over the top.
It's not family friendly.
It's not family friendly. So to take it and to try to make it family friendly, that's a boring drag show. But to keep it the way it is and include kids still, that's an awkward drag show. They're just be there,
And when I was really exposed first to say performance drag was through a talk show called Phil Donahue. It was on TV when I was a kid, and what they had was female impersonators. So they had these impersonators that looked like Cher or Marilyn Monroe, and it wasn't the idea that they were gay. It was the idea that they were men and they were able to give this artistic impression and be really good at it. It was more about the art and rather than, hey, you like pink, maybe you're a girl. And that's what it's turned into. And it's like, no, it was like an art form. And yes, you may have known they were gay or not gay, but that was never the topic. The topic was the art of it. And that's when I actually was first introduced to actual real drag.
It is funny though, the radical left types will say that they're trying to fight against gender norms and stereotypes when really they're basing all of this ideology pushing kids toward transition and stuff on gender stereotypes. Like if you like pink or if you like dolls or, just a more feminine boy must be a girl now and a more masculine girl must be a boy now. It's what happened to just, hey, you're fine the way you are. Maybe you can improve here and there, but there's nothing wrong with you for being that way. And our society got to that point, and then we went so far past it that it's we're going backwards.
Well, and it's to piggyback on what you said about the gender thing. It's so funny. They'll say, well, gender is fluid and we could do whatever we want and there's no gender norms or roles. But the thing is, why is it when someone with a penis wants to do drag, they always try to emulate someone who has a vagina and vice versa? I mean, you clearly do see a difference because if there was no difference, then drag wouldn't exist.
Wouldn't exist. Yep. Yeah.
That's a good point. Kitty, have you heard of Jordan Gray?
I haven't.
So this was a drag. Well, I don't know if she identifies as a drag person.
Trans.
She identifies as trans, I guess. But this is a UK performer who recently was on one of their like normal Friday night. I think it's called Friday Night Live. It's their like their big show over there. And so they had her performing, and at the end of her performance, she sang a song about how great she is and how much better she is than everybody else. And she rips off her clothes to reveal her fully nude self with her augmented breasts and her biological penis.
Her penis.
Her female penis. Yeah.
Her penis.
And so a lot of the coverage of the thing has talked about her penis.
It's just so funny to read that, and had her penis in the headline. I'm just like, God, our society has really gone off the deep end.
And didn't she like finish with her penis on the keyboard? I don't know the name, but I know the story.
Yeah.
So I can show you. Well, I'm not sure how much of this I can show, but I'll pull it up anyway.
I think her. Just don't play the music.
Well, yeah, no, I can not play the music. That's fine. I'm just worried. I think this actually cuts off right before it shows the dangly bits. But there are clips where you can see the dangly bits. That's like not a
and this was on live. This was on live.
It was on ITV. It was in the UK, and what we would normally consider indecent exposure gets raw.
Right. You would never be seen on TV again.
Right.
No, this is supposed to be illegal.
But because this person is trans, I guess it somehow excuses the behavior.
Yeah, I was watching a video by I forgot who it was. It's this conservative black cop I like follow on Instagram, and he was just like, it seems now in our society that if you're a man and you just say you're a woman, you put a dress on and stuff, you could basically get away with anything at this point, and that's
pretty much
where we're heading.
That was it.
Well, that's what I say. I'll see these drag shows of these queens exposing fake boobs and bouncing them through a restaurant at brunch, and there's kids there, and it's like, does that 5-year-old or 4-year-old child understand that those are fake boobs, or do they understand that man on the ground with his legs wide open who's patting his vagina, does that little kid know what's going on? No. They don't know. They see a person dressed as a female doing that,
and what it's teaching them is that it's okay for adults to behave this way around you, and that's dangerous. That's dangerous to set that precedent and like to make it okay in that child's mind for adults to behave that way, when we're supposed to be teaching the opposite. Like, hey, when an adult behaves around you this way, you say something, you run, you get out of there. If
an adult is pulling out their private parts and flashing you, you may not want
or just to acting in any sexual way, even if they have their clothes on. Though, if they're acting in like an alluring like this way, and it's just like we're supposed to teach kids, like, you get the hell out of there. You tell someone. Now we're teaching them. Apparently, it's fine. It's weird.
Well, and anytime, it's another thing, you'll see these performers like saying crawling on the ground and rolling. They act like that's like a norm. They're not pretending to be an animal. They're pretending to be like a woman who's seducing you and who's in heat and can't wait for you to do her. I mean, that's what that whole act is. Or when a drag queen is sitting there pumping up and down, we know that that's a simulation of sex. Yeah. And I don't know why these adults want to pretend that all of us can't see that. And I don't know. Are they? Maybe they're just afraid of the backlash. They don't want to be called homophobic or transphobic. It's almost like everybody has like these kids are held hostage by the community. Yeah. And if you don't allow us to influence them, then you're a homophobe. Yeah. And it's just sick.
Yeah, I was doing some research here in New York City and trying to figure out how institutionalized this drag queen story hour stuff is. It's pretty institutionalized. The government is paying now. We're paying taxpayer dollars for drag queens to go into public schools and perform all over New York City. And if I can show you this list right here, you see their program partners, their school, all these schools and libraries. They've got
crazy. And this is supposed to educate about
preschools,
and what does it teach them about us, that we're all like clowns, that we're all like, most gay men don't dress up in drag.
No, they don't.
Yes.
Most don't even like it. They don't even like it.
Well, I just brought up Fred Sargent. Like there are people like him who look at it as like woman face and stuff, and he's gay. So it's just to think that this is somehow an educational event for kids. It's just like they've deluded themselves. I don't know what they're smoking or what Kool-Aid they drank, but these parents are really deluding themselves, and I blame them, but I also
are we going to bring strippers in to educate the children about sexual education? Maybe we should have strippers talk to children about, how important birth control is, or invite prostitutes in to talk to children about birth control, because they've got a lot of knowledge about the experience, right? It's their professional area. So of course we should just bring them in and let them talk to the children. Like, oh God.
And I've had people say, oh, so we're not supposed to teach kids anything. I said, listen, when I was in school, we had reproductive health when I was in 5th grade. At 5th grade, I had an education, and they separated the boys and the girls and then put them together. They talked to you about your private parts.
Right.
Everybody in the room had the same private parts, so there was no embarrassment.
Yep.
And then they tell you what your body part contributes to the act of reproduction. And then you put everybody together, then you talk about, how both interact. It wasn't about sex. It wasn't about oral sex or fisting or anything. It was about this creates this life, and that's how we got here. And that's all it was. It wasn't about kink. It wasn't about anything. We could all relate to it as and it didn't matter if you were gay or straight. You learned how humans are formed, and that was it.
And when the sex stuff, is taught about, it was taught about at higher grades, like
right.
late middle school, high school. That's when they would start to talk about, safe sex,
and also
contraception,
now,
those things.
It's like sexual education has devolved to the point where they are instructing people on how to masturbate.
Yeah.
They're telling kids about anal sex, about anal
gross.
Beads.
No one had
to
teach me how to masturbate.
No, but you don't have to teach kids how to masturbate. They all figure it out on their own. And really all you have to say is this is a thing. It happens. It's not shameful. And that's it. And you move past it. And you have any other questions? You talk to your parents about it. Because I don't know where this whole idea of teachers becoming the in loco parentis, the local parent for everything else, now it's stop.
No, the whole masturbation thing, I distinctly remember learning about it. It was a friend, and he said, hey, did you know when you do this? It was a group of guys. Do you know when you do this, this happens? Really? I didn't know that. And then you do it, and you come back, and you go, oh, my God, I did it, and it felt like I wanted to pee, so I stopped, and I didn't know what to do. And it was I distinctly remember these conversations.
Kids figure it out on their own for the most part. But even if you feel like, oh, well, teachers should be teaching this stuff, frankly, as someone, if I was a teacher, I wouldn't want the responsibility of having to teach those things to kids.
No.
I would tell them to go ask their parent, because I wouldn't even be wanting to have this conversation. So the fact that there are teachers,
a red flag right there.
It's a red flag. Anyone who's not that kid's parent, who's jumping at the opportunity to have those discussions.
Let me tell your children about fetishes.
Yeah, no.
Oh, that Jeffrey Marsh. Do you know?
Oh gosh,
he is so icky to me.
Creepy.
Is creepy, cringy, annoying. He is everything. And do you know he charges you $350 for 30-minute consultation with him?
That's
brilliant.
If you want to feel good, it's complete
and they call
$700 an hour. That is a rate.
And they call us the grifters. We're making shit.
Right. He goes online. He makes you feel horrible about yourself, that you had a horrible upbringing, but he could make you feel better just by telling you what a beautiful person you are at $350 every 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
I love that idea.
All right, I'm going to switch back into what we brought earlier. The backlash, the hate that you've been receiving. Maybe talk a bit about that. What types of things have you been experiencing? Are people sending you hate mail? Is anyone showing up to your house? Have you been attacked physically or anything like that? Okay.
No, so far the attacks are just online kid stuff, and I think this probably goes for people generally in my age group. We don't take anything online serious. There are people who are calling their local police because someone in Kansas said they're going to come for you, and it's we know that 99.9% of the time it's just
Hot
not.
air.
Right, but I'm not going to pretend that it's like, oh my God, I'm devastated. So I'm getting these mostly kids that are writing to me and telling me, I know nothing about drag. I've never worked in the industry. That I look like a brick. That I look like a bowl of dusty, musty oatmeal. And then a lot of what they do is they parrot the things that they hear on RuPaul's Drag Race, and all these these iconic phrases that these queens say, and then they package them up and then try to regurgitate it back to me. And I let them know, I go, oh, you got that from Fifi O'Hare from RuPaul's Drag Race. You got this from so-and-so. I go, yeah, I've worked with all these people. Trust me, I know the language. I know the culture. I know these people. I know I've judged shows for years. I put them on for years. I performed. You're not hurting me with these ridiculous things you're saying. In fact, it's entertaining. And then I use it on a show of mine. I will read all of their mail and everybody just laughs at it.
So Brent is convinced that RuPaul's Drag Race is like very much one of the core influences that is creating this whole, gender bending ideology phenomenon that we're seeing now. Is like, the parents put it on at home. And the kids sit down and they watch it with the parents. The parents are reacting positively to the show. And when a kid sees that, all a kid wants is attention. They want attention from the parents. They want attention from the adults. They're seeing the adults give the attention to these adults who are doing this. And then they start to think, well, maybe if I do that, maybe if I dress up as the other gender, or maybe I am the other sex, I'll get more attention.
Mommy will love me if I put drag on.
Yeah, mommy will love me. Daddy will give me attention.
Maybe daddy will play with me if I'm wearing a dress.
Yeah.
Well, and the funny thing is, I've told parents this. I go, if you think it's such a valuable lesson, why don't you, Dad, dress up as a woman and read to your kids at home?
Yeah.
I mean, to go outside of the home to try to learn a good lesson is kind of odd. If you want to teach diversity and inclusivity, why aren't you modeling it at home, and your child will grow up with it anyway?
Well, this brings up a good point, though, because, a lot of these videos I'm seeing online of the drag shows, in restaurants and places like this where the kids are there, it's mostly all women in attendance. Like, there's no gay men there. And this is what people need to understand. Like, most gay men don't support this. Maybe they're staying quiet about it because they don't want to. They don't want to stand out and be canceled by the woke mob. But really, it's these freaking like Karens, these wine moms who are bored as hell, and they think this is the next, the next cause that they got to be a part of. So they're the ones going to these events, putting them on, sponsoring them, bringing their kids to them. And where the hell are the fathers? Where are the dads standing up and saying, no, honey, you're not bringing my kid to this? And I think there is, a distinct lack of true masculinity, and I mean masculinity in the sense of protecting. I don't mean the toxic type, because there's also toxic femininity, which is what I'm talking about here. That's what this is. This is toxic femininity is very much at the core of this whole gender ideology stuff. It is the HR departments, and it's mostly women pushing this stuff, but we don't want to have that conversation, And even J.K. Rowling, people like her don't seem like willing to acknowledge that, despite the fact that it's men dressing up as women and they are invading women's spaces and all this stuff. And it violates women's rights. Women in many ways have allowed this to happen and have pushed for it.
Oh, totally. And they're actually, they're complicit in their own erasure.
Yeah.
That's what cracks me up is that, they fight for female rights, civil rights, equality. And then what they do is they welcome men into sports to beat them.
Yeah.
So it takes away their opportunity of winning, their opportunity of scholarships, everything. And I it just really shocks me to see women not be able to define what a woman is and say that a man in a dress is equal in womanhood to them.
Yeah.
And it just really shocks me.
And then you have people, who do like, eventually they'll say something like Macy Gray, and then the woke mob comes after them. They get canceled. Then, their PR people probably take them behind stage and they say, hey, if you want your album to sell and if you want your career, walk that back. And instead of just standing their ground, they walk it back. And when you point out the cowardiceness of this, and look, I love J.K. Rowling, I do support what she's doing. I think what she's doing is amazing. instead of admitting that, hey, that is cowardice, they say, well, no, it's more misogyny. It's easier for a man to speak out about these things. They're going to get less hate and less backlash. Not true. Matt Walsh is getting death threats all the freaking time. You know, what it comes down to is more women do have to speak out about this and stand their ground and to stop cowering when the woke mob comes after them. Otherwise, it isn't going to change. It can't just be the men, although we do need more men, of course. You know, we do.
Well, yeah.
And we don't.
Well, and I'm even, getting sick of women even using like past oppression to, like I've been like when I grew up, Madonna was everything. When I was 14, she was at the height of everything.
Right.
She has been for the whole time. She's been talking about I'm oppressed. Men have more power. This and that. She's a billionaire now, and she is still
right.
her whole new face online saying I can't age because people will talk shit when she is completely surrounding herself with nothing but teenagers all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, honey, you're the biggest ageist I've even known.
Yeah. You don't hang out with people your own freaking age, you know?
No.
And oppressed? Come on. Madonna is one of the least oppressed people in the world right now. The vast majority of men in this world right now will never have that kind of wealth and privilege.
No, never. Never. And I mean, she's so privileged, she can go somewhere, buy kids, bring them back to the United States, live exactly the life that she wants to live, say and do exactly what she wants, and you're still crying about it. And so it's part of the whole shtick. It's part of the whole shtick.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start to criticize women at all, like like women as the group or women with like the capital W, they immediately start flinging accusations of misogyny. Oh, well, you're just a this, that, and the third. And it's like, honey, like,
if that's your most powerful tool, then you're not very strong anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I mean, because I don't mind if I don't like something a person of color says or does, I will say it, and I don't care. And they'll, oh, well, you're racist. Oh, really? Because, wait a minute, I'd be racist if I gave them a break because of their color.
Yes.
They don't know any better. No, you know better. You should do better, say better, act better. And I don't care what color you are. I mean, I just don't. And so I'm not afraid to call people out if they're not exactly like me.
Yeah, they call that the racism of low expectations.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's also the same thing. Like we see that the left constantly, they claim ownership over Black people, over women, over gay people, over trans people. They do not own anyone. And there are people from all groups on both sides of the aisle. Yep. And they hate being reminded of that. They really hate it. They hate seeing it. That's why they have to censor us. Because when you are gay or when you're a drag queen or when you're trans and you speak out against their side, they get extra incensed.
Yeah, we had
really makes them look bad.
We had Sarah Higdon on the show already, who is a trans woman and identifies as trans, and is right-leaning, is more conservative. And they accuse her of all types of crazy, like you're not a real trans person, all this stuff. It's like Sarah post-op. Like if anyone is more trans, like most trans people don't even have the operations. And granted, we probably advise, that they probably shouldn't because there are a lot of complications with that. Go watch our last episode with Shapeshifter, who also had the operation, and it didn't turn out well. No. But for some people, a very small amount, I would say, fine. It turns out well for them. They did it when they were older, when they were adults. They accuse us of being transphobes and all this stuff. It's like, no, we will bring Sarah on our show. We'll talk to Sarah. I will break bread with Sarah any day of the week. It's not a matter of phobic. It's a matter of, are you a rational human being, a rational adult?
Can we have a conversation?
Can we have a conversation? or if you're trans and you don't expect me to play this mental game of seeing you exactly as the sex that you are now trying to appear as, the opposite, then we're fine. But if you're going to try to make us play this mental game with you, that not only must we use the pronouns, but we have to, in our minds, see you as that, trans women are women. Not playing.
It's almost like they don't want to have sincere, honest relationships with people.
No. Not the radicals. No. And the ones who aren't radical, honestly, they want to pass as much as possible and just be left alone. Like it has nothing to do with like waving in people's faces and saying I'm here and I'm trans and you're going to accept me. It's like they literally just want to blend into society. For some, that's not always possible. Like our last episode I mentioned, we had Shapeshifter on. He talked about being in like this sort of pink bubble for a long time, where even though he he passes pretty well still, even though in the process of detrans. He just had people around him affirming all the time that he did. And it wasn't until he got out of that bubble that he realized he didn't totally pass and had to kind of confront the reality of the situation. You know, he was sold this idea that you can actually change your sex with these surgeries.
I wonder if he's is he part of Trans Against Groomers?
I think he's associated with them. Yeah,
he's in touch.
I think he might.
I don't know
be
if
a
like
member.
the grouping is very loose. Like we're all sort of like associated.
Yeah, we're associated too, but we're not like official like members or anything.
Right.
Like that. But we're friends with a lot of the members that we know.
We're friends.
Yeah.
We participate in their spaces.
Yeah, Mike.
Any gay person, started with Gays Against Groomers, and it went to Trans Against Groomers, and anybody could be a part of it. And it's nobody has to be an official member, and it's gotten so big, and they actually they separated the trans people because they have a huge voice in this, and
they do.
A lot of people were confused probably with gays, just thinking it's gays, but no, it's great, and I love to see how because there are these organized groups, more people in the so-called community are able to come out and have a place to go to, and speak their opinion and have people have their back.
Yeah,
that's important.
The New York chapter head, his name's Michael. He's a really funny guy. He's in a neuro lab up at Columbia University, and this was the first time he ever spoke out on these issues.
Why are you doxing him, Brent? They're going to come after him.
Well,
he said it publicly. Yeah.
He said it public. This is public information. But my point is that he was not, out on these issues. He wasn't speaking publicly on these issues until Gays Against Groomers became like a meme, and then he was like, "Oh, I feel comfortable like aligning with that group and having that group, representing me."
Yeah. Well, if you don't see that there are people who are going to have your back, it is definitely way more difficult to stand up and do something. And I commend the people who were doing it before there were groups that
social ostracization is it's one of our ancient fears as humans.
Right.
It was a death sentence in prior ages. And so when they come to cancel you like that, that's really the energy of that is what would have happened in a tribe, a very small tribe of people living, thousands and thousands of years ago in the woods. And you got one person in your group that is pathological or threatening the integrity of the group. You have to get them out, because otherwise they're just going to cause more and more problems. And so now we're in this situation where we have those same hardwiring, all that same genetic hardwiring, that evolutionary programming, and we're in a society that is not really meant for it. And so we're grappling with the cancellation culture on a macro social scale. So when they want to cancel you, when they send you those hate mail, like that energy is the energy of, we want to never see you again and possibly end your existence. So it's
you want to know what's funny about these haters that come after me is I will then have a private conversation with them after they publicly are, putting me down and trying to entertain everybody with their witty, cliche word, things that they say to me. So we'll write privately. And it's so funny because we get to the point in the conversation where they say, not every drag performance is like that. And I said, your statement just reaffirms what I said, because you said not every. So that means some do. And I'm talking about the some. I'm not talking about all of them. So even in your own language, you're agreeing that there are some inappropriate things that are being done in front of children. You are just too much of a coward to say it. And you don't like me standing up and having the courage to say it. And then once that happens, the conversation's over with, because they know they lost. They know they're a coward. They have certain beliefs, and they won't say it publicly.
Yep, they're afraid because they know that you can't defend these ideas. As soon as that's why they have to use innuendo. They use endless logical fallacy. One of my favorite is the Mott and the Bailey, where they defend a reasonable position, which is actually just a smokescreen for what's actually happening. So they'll say something like, we just want to educate the kids on gay people, and that gay people and that drag queens and trans people exist. And that's either, I can't remember if it's the Mott or the Bailey, but that's the defensible position, when really what they're doing is they're indoctrinating small children into this gender ideology where you can pick your gender. You can be a boy, you can be a girl, you can be both, you can be neither. And that's really the danger, because you're lying to children, small children, impressionable children, about the nature of reality. And you're setting them up for disappointment. And this is the same thing we saw with Shape in our last thing. They're telling these kids lies. These kids are forming their expectations based on those lies. And then when they're confronted with reality, it's like a rude awakening that can shatter some of their lives, because they've been told one thing the entire point, and then they realize, gee whiz, that's a lie. That's not true. I mean, I operated my entire life on the theory that I could become this other sex, or that I could be whatever I want. And now my body's wrecked. I've got all these physical problems. I'm going to need, hormones and chemicals. For
multiple. Yeah, they're going to be lifelong big pharma customers.
So many surgeries. And they don't talk about, it's not just 1 or 2 surgeries. These people have like anywhere from like 6 to 12. Facial feminization, like all these surgeries. And it's just money, 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 money. And to even point that out, to even mention, you just become, oh, well, you're just trying to erase trans kids. It's like, what?
It would be different. It would be different if they were just upfront about all of that and said, look, chances are this might not solve your problems. Maybe it'll help with some of your dysphoria, but here are all these other things that could happen. Here are all these other complications that could arise. Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? We should be asking that a million times before we ever let anyone go under the knife or start putting these chemicals in their bodies. And that used to be the approach. The watchful waiting approach used to be how they handled people who had dysphoria symptoms. Now it's like, if you have any little sign of not, being feminine enough as a woman or not being masculine enough as a boy, as a guy, like, well, you must be that, then, oh, you feel like you're the other one? Sure, here you go. Here's your subscription after a couple of psychiatric appointments and stuff, and they just send them on their way. And then when something goes wrong, the surgeons and stuff don't want anything to do with them anymore.
No, and I think they're using drag as a gateway to that.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it's naturally the gateway to it. I mean, you get someone of the opposite sex dressing as the opposite sex. And, and a lot of times I get the impression that they think, or they're telling children that we live like this, that the vast majority of people who are on that stage get off that stage and go home and remove everything. And they do not live like that. Right. Now, there has been, if you notice on RuPaul's Drag Race, trans people have been trickling in as as drag contestants in the reality show contest. And RuPaul was against it at first. And RuPaul got backlash because RuPaul is a little older than me, but we're roughly in the same age group. He has the opinion, well, drag is a man who is doing a woman, and and it's sexy and it's adult. He had all the classic beliefs of what drag is. But then when he got hate mail, and then when he started coming down on the show, completely had to change his opinion. Well, just like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton decided all of a sudden they liked gay marriage when they were before, when they were against it. So it's all about money and popularity and access and things like that. These grown adults, middle-aged and older adults, all of a sudden have epiphanies and change their ideas as soon as money is involved.
Yeah, and now we got Dylan Mulvaney sitting down with the president.
I watch that guy. That's a dude, and I watch him, and I'm like, is he really trolling? I mean, I troll as a different character. I trolled for years. And this guy, I'm like,
we're going to talk about that. Actually, that was one of the things we wanted to get into. So I was on your Facebook.
Wait, let her finish your point.
No, but I'm thinking it to me it comes off as a complete mockery.
It could be.
He's mocking women, but I think he's also mocking trans people.
Well, he doesn't even call himself a woman. He identifies as a little girl, as a girl, which is even weirder,
That's even worse. I didn't know that part.
He's not talking about womanhood. He's talking about girlhood, he calls it.
And he's in the White House.
The thing with Dylan, though, that is just so obvious, it's that it's a performance. It's a performance, and it's for the money. And granted, he's taking it probably to the nth extreme now because he's being so positive,
so much attention. Yeah,
I mean, he went from having nothing. He was not on anybody's radar. He had a couple of viral moments.
Yeah, didn't he appear on Jeopardy or something?
Price is Right. He had a viral Price is Right sort of freak out because he was just so crazy.
Yeah.
But he's been, he got naked on stage with a band called the Skivvies and did a performance. Or not naked, but I guess he was in
underwear.
Underwear.
So he's a performer.
He's a performer.
A narcissist. This is clearly someone who really is desperate for attention. I don't know if this is rooted in his family issues in the past, probably, right? But clearly they are really desperate for attention. And then as soon as they found out that the girlhood thing, the trans thing worked and getting them that attention, I think they just threw themselves completely into it.
He's got like over 5 million followers on TikTok.
Something like that. But
good for him.
So you mentioned trolling before, and I was on your Facebook earlier, and I saw you posted that you are Hagatha Sisti.
Yes.
Is this true? I want to confirm this.
Yes, I am. Have you heard of Hagatha?
Of course. I mean, we saw some of these videos a couple years ago and thought they were hilarious.
Loved these videos.
I had no idea that this was also you.
I had no idea it was the same person.
I also love the play on the name Agatha Christie. I think it's brilliant. I had no idea this was also you, so I just kind of wanted to confirm. I wasn't sure if this was true or not, but
you need to take a look at this. You see that? That means children will no longer get an education that they need and deserve to have a good, decent life. They're not going to learn about pronouns. I mean, it's a breakdown of the English communication if they don't teach them that. And then also, they can't display the pride flag anymore. Do you know what's going to happen to these children? They can't educate them on their sexuality anymore. This means children are not going to know anything about golden showers and puppy play and things like that. These are important things they're going to actually need in life, okay? You guys, we need to do better, and we can't stand for this. They're trying to erase us.
This is great, and it's funny too because when I would see these videos, there were a lot of people who thought you were serious. They don't realize
it's even better
that this is a parody, but it shouldn't be obvious. It's very over the top.
We're in the age of parody? Question mark?
That's true. You can't always tell anymore, especially with people like Dylan, right? Going around taking it as serious as they seem to. You can't even tell anymore. For example, the woodshop teacher up in Canada with the giant, right? I'm starting to suspect that is a troll. And there are rumors on Reddit,
Yes, I've seen it too.
Yeah, apparently some students went on Reddit and said that, this teacher from the rumors apparently had problems with the school district a few years ago, by, I guess, questioning the woke stuff in their class and getting backlash from the school district. So they show up this year all of a sudden
as a woman,
as not just a woman, but as the most ridiculous caricature you can think of as a woman. And by the school's own policies, they have to affirm this person. And some people suspect that he's trying to get fired so he can sue them or whatever. I don't know what his intentions are, but man, if that guy is a troll, that is one of the most masterful trolling incidents ever.
I love the whole thing. When I heard he might possibly be a troll, I went, wow, I would love it. I would love to see. I can't wait to see how it all ends.
Yeah, apparently the students are in on it. That's according to the rumors. A lot of them know that this guy is not serious.
And I came up with Hagatha one day. I was bored, and I went, you know what? I was just thinking how crazy the world is, and I'm like, I'm going to do this character. First of all, it takes me 5 minutes to get into that, get it. Where this takes me hours. So I'm like, well, I can create a new character that's really easy to do, and so I did it, and I found out that people absolutely believed it, and I was shocked. I didn't expect that. And then I went, okay, I'm going to keep going. Now I'm going to come up with a backstory. So as I'm in it, all of my shows were live. I never really recorded much. It was all live. And people start piling in. And of course, the nature, oh my God, I'm going to share this. Look at this freak. And so I get tons of people watching me. And at one point during the election cycle, when Hillary was on stage with Lady Gaga, I had more viewers watching me on Facebook than she had. Once Lady Gaga left, I was watching it. Once Lady Gaga got off stage and it was just Hillary Clinton, I had more viewers than Hillary Clinton.
Wow.
But anyway,
Hillary zero.
I was just coming up with different stories, and I had to remember what my whole storyline is. And then it just started writing itself. And then eventually some people started, wait, this isn't real. Then I would tell them, if they wrote to me, I'd say, yeah, it's an act. But the fun of it became, I had different audiences, some who knew and some who didn't. And then some who would come in to trash me. And which I loved, because I love going up against haters. And so I would trash them online, and people loved it, and they're all sending me money. And it's like, wow, this is crazy. And I've been doing that for 3 years. And a lot of people are in on it now. So I don't get a lot of the looky-loos that kind of just drop in and, oh my God, this freak of nature. A lot of people know it's an act, but they still enjoy it. It's just not what it used to be. So I've been, trying to find a new way of reviving, putting new life into that. Did
they kick you off of Twitter?
Okay, yes, I was permanently banned from Twitter.
I couldn't find one there.
If you have a problem with Twitter, this is what I did. I tried everything to get a new account, everything, and it just will not. So I had a friend in Florida create an account, and then they sent me, and I don't know if maybe it's the distance, maybe, I don't know, sent me all the information. I'm able to log on, and I do have a Twitter account now, and it's called, he named it Helen de Keller, like Helen Keller, but with DA instead of, and so I am on Twitter. I do lay low a little bit. I was extremely popular really on TikTok. Now TikTok's good about banning you and then letting you come back on. I've had many accounts. I just don't use it anymore. It's no fun establishing new accounts all the time. So yeah. I rarely do TikTok.
Yeah, I feel you. I have a TikTok. I have fun with it, but I find sometimes I'll post like what I think is an innocuous video that's not too spicy, and they'll pull it down for like hate speech or something. I'm just like, what?
Oh yeah, that's the place for the bully reporting. It is definitely TikTok. If you get enough bullies that you don't like what you're doing, TikTok will acquiesce to the bullies and say, nobody wants to see this.
A younger crowd too, mostly.
Well, the reporting's, I guess, automated because one, they're Chinese, so they don't speak a lot of English, and two, their volume is like pretty high. So I doubt they actually have somebody like physically reviewing material. They're probably all algorithmically, and so if they get a certain threshold, certain number of reports, they'll just pull your shit down, automatically. Just for it, and if they get too many too often, then they'll flag the account and the account gets nuked.
Yep.
But TikTok is actually where I've had the most growth, I think, out of any platform myself. I have like 2,500 followers on there right now, which is like a lot for me. So very happy about that, and it does give me a play. Like I like their editing software because the way that I can do it, it makes their own captions, so I don't have to really try. And then it's really easy for me to just make a little title like thing to splash image for a thumbnail. So I kind of like it. It's a little interesting though, and the people on there are weird. There's some interesting folks on TikTok, and there's a lot of.
Yeah.
I mean, I follow everything from people who have their own like farms and like animal accounts to like people that work out that are
hot
like
bros.
Very pretty, and then there's just like random funny people that I follow. That like there's this one kid in Florida who just like climbs trees. And so he's always in a tree, and then there's this crabber in Louisiana who's got crabs, and I'm always learning about.
What about the one that tarantulas?
Oh, Westside Tiles is an account to follow on TikTok. He always has really cool bug videos, and they're always these like exotic, large tarantulas or scorpions or cockroaches, and he's like handling them. It's really, really intense. Anyway,
so much on TikTok, so much.
It's a little overwhelming. I mostly stay off of there, but I'm on there now, and my page I just post about like nerdy book stuff and music and art and stuff.
That's what it's for, though. That's what it's for. It's for your little niche, whatever your niche is, whatever your niche content. that's what it's for. And you'll find people, there's so many people on there, and the algorithm is actually really good at sorting you content that you want to see. So once you've been on there for a while and you've interacted with it a little bit, it's really good at showing you things that you actually want to see.
Yeah, you'll find your people on TikTok if you're there. If you put enough time into it, yeah, you'll find your people.
Yeah, they can get a little weird and annoying at times.
I don't know. To me, it's just there's too many apps, too many social media.
Many.
I can't freaking keep up with all of them. Just Twitter is exhausting enough, to be honest. And then Instagram hates us. They shadow ban the hell out of us. So.
Well, it's funny you talk about the social media. I was trying to remember where I talked to you guys at, and I'm going through all of my social media last night because I don't have a big production going on here. And so I have no assistants or anything. And I'm late at night on my phone just going through everything, going, where did I talk to these guys at? And it was this morning that I finally found you on Instagram.
It's Instagram, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't blame you. Actually, anyone's listening, Kitty needs an assistant right away. If you're willing to work for free or makeup lessons or whatever, get Kitty an assistant now.
I do have a couple. It's so funny. I have somebody who worked on a website for me. He's the person in Florida. It's funny. He's a gay man who works for the RNC, and it's so funny how they love to talk about the homophobia, and it's you wouldn't believe how many homosexuals I've known on this side. How many Fox producers are gay that I met?
Yep.
So many.
Even in the Trump cabinet, I met his financial people at the hotel, and we kicked it in my hotel room. Flaming. They're not even. These are not DL homos. These are fully out. Here I am. It's like the left side, whatever. They have no idea. They have no idea what they're talking about.
They don't live in reality. I don't think they understand. Anyone can hold some conservative values.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you're a Christian fundamentalist, nationalist, all that stuff. It does nothing to do with that stuff. Yeah, sure, those people are there, but they're honestly a minority on that
when
side.
We were in Burlington, Kitty, they did a write-up in the local paper there. It's called the VT Digger. And they were calling us all Christo-fascist, white, conservative, this, that, and the third, heterosexual. We were all I think most of the people up there were gay. It was me, I was gay. Josh Lockham's gay. And Fred Sargent's gay.
Josh is also atheist.
His partner's gay. Yeah. Chris Aaron Felker is the Vermont head of the GOP party. He's the elected head of the party up there. He's gay. I mean, there's so many gays that are on our side. I honestly think that they don't have the numbers. I think we are actually the predominant viewpoint, and the reason they have to cancel us and promote people like Dylan Mulvaney, right up to putting them up with the president, is because they're trying to create this false perception that they are the dominant perspective. When it's all created through a hall of mirrors and smoke and mirrors.
Well, social media amplifies it. It amplifies their voices.
Amplifies them and downregulates us.
Plus, there's a lot of fake accounts and bots and things on there.
There are.
So it's just I think it creates this illusion that there are more of these radical lefty types than they actually are. They're just a loud minority. But all it really takes for authoritarianism to take root is a loud, powerful minority to sway the rest of the people to either, follow them or to just stay silent while all of this is happening, out of fear. That's all it really takes. So whether it's a minority or not, it doesn't mean that we're still not facing a very real issue here, just in the fact that their voices are being supported too by the establishment.
I don't know if this news has made it to New York yet, but in LA, we're having this huge scandal right now with our city council of Los Angeles, which is very interesting. It's a Latino city council. Okay, they were caught on video on audio talking bad about Black people. Okay, and they were saying this little kid was a monkey, and he was the son of a gay white Congress member. Okay, so anyway, so it's hilarious. So they went after the gay with an adopted Black kid. And these are people who are drawing districts for in LA for the votes, and they're doing it according to demographics and things like this. Huge scandal. This should be a national story.
Yeah.
It's blatant racism. It's on tape. Right now, they're at one of their houses protesting, telling them to resign. He won't resign. This is a huge thing about equity, race. You couldn't write a better story. It involves Latinos, blacks, whites, gay, adoption, everything. And this has not become a national scandal.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy the way that these are things that also the COVID response and the COVID scenario, they want to have a January 6th committee and drag that on for months and months and months and pull in the past president, put him on the stand. Why are we not having this whole, like the way that they focus attention on things that don't matter and then ignore things that really do matter? Just tells me that we are being manipulated and lied to from the top down.
Yeah, it's very sophisticated propaganda.
Very sophisticated.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard of Edward Bernays. I like to bring him up on this show, but he was the nephew. He was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and he literally wrote the book Propaganda. Literally wrote the book on it, and he took like the crowd psychology theories of this guy Gustave Le Bon, and then he took the analytical psychoanalytic theories of his uncle, and fused them together to create this whole like style of propaganda, how to mold the public mind. And he used to work for corporations and political campaigns and things like that to teach them how to sell a product or how to sell an idea during a campaign. Like, this is what the elite study. These are the books they read. This is the material they study because they want to know how to do that. How do we mold the public mind in a particular direction? If you don't understand the tools that are being used against you, you're going to be more susceptible to this stuff.
Right.
No one is like exempt from being influenced by propaganda, including myself. I know I am, but because I know I am, and because I recognize the methods, I'm less likely to be influenced or more likely to recognize when I am being influenced and then to step out of that. But anyone who says that they're not susceptible to propaganda, you are the most susceptible.
Right. It's like somebody if you don't question your sanity, then you probably are crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, it reminds me of this clip. Mika Brzezinski, she's the daughter of Zygmunt Brzezinski, who is the architect of the Vietnam and the Cold War. She was caught on camera lamenting the fact that some people were influencing, the masses. And I'll just play the clip real quick.
Oh, I know who she is. Yeah.
He could have undermined the messaging so much that he can actually control exactly what people think, and that is our job.
Yeah. And that is our job.
She's talking about Donald Trump right there, worried that he's gonna, tell people what to think. And that's our job. That's our job as the media.
That is amazing.
Yeah. Quite a slip there, Freudian
one of those times where, the mask comes off for a hot second.
I love those moments.
Seeing how the sausage is made.
Damn. All right, so we are at about an hour and 20 almost.
Yeah, we can wind it down.
So I guess we'll start to wrap it up. I want to ask, Kitty, I guess some of your final thoughts on, where do you think this whole culture war is heading? And, do you think things are going to get worse, or do you see the tides turning? And, if they're not turning, what do you think we can do more to turn those tides?
Have we reached peak crazy, or is it going to get crazier? Yeah.
It's like, and it's such a common thing to say, I can't see it getting crazier. But then it gets crazier. I mean, I don't know. It's my hope, of course, that people like us, a part of the community who go out there and are actually speaking, hopefully our voices start to get amplified, they start doubling, and people start listening, and where you can, be okay with the community, be okay with drag, but just, watch it from a distance and not involve your children in it. It's, I don't know, and I don't even think gay people have thought about this. What is this doing to you? When all of a sudden, all these tomboys are turning into men and all of these sissy fairy boys are turning into women, where does that leave homosexuality? It's like, I'll tell you, working in the club, it was already an issue, honestly. It was a conversation between me, another manager, and the owners, how to masculinize the club back again. Because the clubs were turning into go-go boys, starting to wear corsets and garters, and really feminizing. And it's like, there were no, dudes, you know what I mean? It's like, they were telling the bartenders, stop wearing makeup, start being a guy. Like, men want to come in and they want to buy a drink from a man. It's like even the feminine boys, the feminine gays, they want a man. They don't want another femme. And I mean, and the drag queens know that more than anything. There are so many single drag queens because they take their job a little too seriously.
Yeah.
And it's like, so what is it? What does that mean for homosexuality in the future? If we are now saying, if you're a feminine man, you're not really a man, you're a woman. So hopefully we're pushing back on all of this. And, no one's against trans people. We're just against trans children.
Yes.
Medicalizing.
No such thing. There aren't trans kids. It's not a thing. We have to even stop using this terminology, I think.
It isn't. I mean, what does that mean? You went from an adult to a kid? When they say trans kid, I mean, you went from something to a kid. You transitioned. But, we put more thought in the raising of animals. We don't, people are against doxing their ears, cutting off their tails, modifying them in these manners where they don't mind medicalizing and altering children before they even have a brain that's old enough to come up with these concepts and make these lifelong decisions. That's why you wait till you're an adult to make such decisions. This is why we try children as children when they commit a crime, because they don't know any better. They might come up from a bad household. They might come from a place that has the wrong influence. And it's like, there's a reason why children cannot make certain decisions. And definitely one of them should not be to make a lifelong decision and altering their biology or their chemistry. A lot of these kids can't even have children when they decide, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, too, probably at least 80% of them are going to just turn into gay and lesbian and bisexual adults. And right. How is this not like a form of conversion therapy when you really think about it? And there are some who make that argument, but that's what it comes down to, is like most gender non-conforming kids are going to just end up gay, lesbian, and bisexual when they're adult.
Right. When I was a little boy and all my friends were girls, all I wanted to do was to be a girl like them and come to school and be pretty and have my dad, have me the favorite in the family because I'm the girl, and have the boys want me because I knew I was gay. So I wanted boys' attention. And it's like, it wasn't until my mid-20s, late 20s, I went, you know what? I'm cool with being a guy. I'm able to navigate through the men's world. I'm no longer being called faggot anymore, which I'll say built my character and toughened me up.
Yeah. And
it was like, then I'm like, God, thank God that I did not have the option to become a girl.
Yeah. If you were being raised in today's world and you had, if you were in a particular political environment or had, certain parents who aligned politically with these ideologies, who knows, you would be on puberty blockers right now, perhaps.
I love that I had I hated him then. I'll say that I hated my parents then, but I love them now. When I wanted to pierce my ear, one piercing in my ear, my parents are like, no, this is my body until you're 18. I will take care of it. And then when you move out, you do whatever the hell you want. And I'm like, all right. I hated it at the time, and I pushed the boundary. I wore a clip on, but you know what I mean? It's like, at least that there were parameters and, and there's a smart way of kind of getting around these things. But you just tell a kid, hey, you want to be a girl? Let's take you to San Francisco, your daughter, and say, let's cut your tits off. I knew a family who did that.
That's crazy. It's like they don't want a parent anymore. The kids are now taking control. They're the ones leading the way, and that's backwards. That's not how it's supposed to be. Like there are always going to be moments where your kid says, I hate you for not letting them do something, or I'm going to kill myself. You know how many kids say that, when you don't let them get their way?
All of them.
Almost all of them.
At one point.
So you don't just affirm, like whatever, oh my God, they might kill themselves. And the fact that these doctors have the audacity to say to these parents that if you don't affirm that's what's going to happen, they're, if anything, more responsible, I think, in all of this. And I think there needs to be some trials. I want to see some people behind bars. That's my opinion. These surgeons, these doctors, and even some of these parents who allowed this to happen, and some of them abandon their kids afterward too, because they don't want to, I think, put the blame onto themselves that they had a hand in that by not being parents. So
there are adults out there who are mad at their parents for not stopping them when they were kids.
Yeah.
So either your kid's gonna, at some point you're gonna have to be a parent and you're gonna be held responsible, whether it's when they're young or whether they're old.
Yeah.
You're not going to escape it.
I think it's better to have them hate you right now and to protect them from making decisions that they are more than likely going to regret later.
Of course.
Than to have them hate you later for not stopping them from doing those things.
And your childhood is such a small portion of your life. It's like, at least let them develop into what they're going to be for the majority of their life. Don't get them when it's like getting a caterpillar when they're in a cocoon and screwing with them before they turn into a butterfly. It's like, let them turn into a butterfly and then they can decide what they want.
At one of these protests, I saw a video on Twitter, and it's funny too how a lot of these like older trans people they just don't pass. And I think that's why they're so mad. And he was saying something along the lines of like, I didn't consent to puberty. And I'm just like, think about how crazy that I didn't consent to puberty. No one does. Everyone goes through it. It's not something you consent or don't consent to. It's just a natural process.
Your consent isn't required.
Yeah,
right.
But
exactly.
they're saying that, when kids don't want to go through it because they want to like pass more later in life, because that's the reasoning they're giving, for giving the puberty blockers, is they're saying it's going to help them pass more when they're adults. It's like, that's the argument they're using, is that no one consents to puberty. It's absurd.
There's also an argument with trans people, which is a fact, that if they don't let their penis grow to the full size, they won't have enough material to create the vagina that they want. And if they don't have enough material to create the vagina that they want, they use your colon, and then your vagina smells like poop.
Ew.
That's a fact. I mean, and it's like, and even all these surgeries, these people are on medications for the rest of their life. Yeah. A lot of them are dealing with monthly infections. Yeah. You're a guinea pig. Like, there is no exact science to this whole thing.
Yeah, I don't
think people are realizing this.
That's, again, I direct people to our last episode 86, in which we talked with Shapeshifter, who, is a D-trans person and went through these surgeries and is dealing with all of these problems right now. And, we really sympathize with him. And, and he went so far that he doesn't even bother to like try to pass as a man anymore. He still has long hair. He still has implants and all that stuff. And he doesn't even care what pronouns you use. Like, when you look at him, you want to say she, actually, because he still very much looks like a woman, but he identifies as D-trans and is, I'm a man, I'm a biological man, and I had my penis removed, and I'm having all of these complications, and I was sold this lie. And it's like, look, I beg people, please listen to those voices and hear what they have to say. And I'm not saying pity them, and because they don't want that either, but learn from their story, because that's why they're telling their stories. That's why they're putting themselves in this position. That's why they're getting hate, like Kitty is here. The same thing. They're getting hate from these people who used to claim they were in their community. And as soon as you leave, that's it. You're dead to them. And this is why it's a cult,
I hate that word. I hate the community.
I do too.
The community.
And I had people there. They keep using the community word with me online, and I'm like, what community? I go, first of all, I'm a community of the world. I'm not going to be hijacked, and I'm not going to be kidnapped into your acronym community. I never asked for that. I never did. I never signed up membership. You don't get to own me.
Nope.
I mean, and it's funny how they really do think they own you. Well, we're kicking you out. I go, how are you kicking me out?
I was never in it, honey.
Where is this community? Like, wait, is it a building?
I'm a homosexual regardless if I'm in your community. I mean,
exactly.
It's stupid. It's just stupid.
And it was never much of a community to begin with anyway. Even back in the gay liberation days, like, gays had their own bars mostly, and lesbians had their own bars mostly. And it's still kind of like that today.
Oh, yeah.
But like, lesbian problems and experiences are different than gay man problems and experiences, which are different than bisexual problems and experiences, which are different than someone who has gender dysphoria. Those are all none of them are the same thing.
Right.
It's forced teaming. The acronym, the alphabet mafia, we'll call it. It's forced teaming, and I think we need to go back to, being individuals.
I remember that was such a big thing with me growing up is nobody wanted to be in a box. Everybody wanted to be an individual. And here we are 30 years later. Everybody, it can't wait to find a box to jump into.
Desperate to be in a box.
Jump in the box. Crazy.
Yeah, it's ridiculous how much, I don't know. I mean, how can something change so much? Like a messaging. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's definitely, we've been taken for a wild ride, and I think it sort of shows the pathological minds that are at the top of the media and the organizations, especially that claim to speak for gay people, like the HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, or the GLAAD. I forget what that stands for.
Well, these groups also, they used to be good groups that defended the sex.
They did a lot of good work for gay rights and lesbian rights, up until gay marriage. And then it's like, once we got gay marriage, we basically got everything that we ever wanted and needed in terms of rights and respect. And now it's just gone. We'll keep going.
Off the deep end.
Still going too far in that direction.
Personally, I think it is going to get a little crazier before it gets better. And I only say that because there's more pushback happening now. Mm-hmm. And the tides are turning in that sense where there's more pushback. But because there's more pushback, I think the radical side, they're going to push back against the pushback and things are going to get heated. And there might, I don't know what the watershed moment is going to be. Like things are changing. I think I just saw a recent story in the UK. Let me pull this up really quick. It was I think Tulip Richie posted this. Do you know Tulip?
Richie is another D-trans.
Richie is another D-trans
male
person,
to female to male in the UK, who again was just a gay man who really he kind of got herded through the gender transition factory, and it was really afterward he had similar complications and kind of got the whole process, and now identifies as a D-trans male.
And the thing is, if we're all part of this community, how come our voices don't matter? In the community, it's like, oh well, you're saying something we don't like, you're no longer part of the community. It's like, well, that's not a real community then.
Oh, here it is. The story was on Telegraph. This is from the UK. Most children who think they're transgender are just going through a phase, says the NHS doctors, who told not to encourage young people to change their names and pronouns. This is a recent story. And, Richie shared this and he said, to those who spoke up, the professionals who raised the alarm, the academics who risked their career, the titans that held firm in their position despite the abuse, the detransitioners, the parents, this is all because of you. Thank you. And Richie told his story for the same reason Shapeshifter told his story. They wanted to prevent other people from making the same mistakes that they did. And these aren't anti-trans people. They're not transphobes. These were trans people. And, they definitely support adults making their own decisions with caution.
Right. Make an informed decision. And you learn these things from people who have gone through it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see what is so controversial about doing that. Hey, I went through this process. This is what happened, and you should absorb that and think about this before you go on your journey. Right. And it just, to me, it's responsible. It's giving. It's loving to actually do that. That these people who are suffering with this, who have suffered for a lifetime with this stuff, who are coming out and saying, I want you to know my experience, and this is what I've gone through and how I felt. That's a gift. And these people are just treating it like they're a piece of crap. They're trying to suppress their speech, and it's like, it's awful.
Yeah, because it goes against their narrative, much like yourself. You're sharing your experience. You're saying, hey, I'm a drag queen. I've worked for many years in this industry. I've worked in these clubs. I know what this scene in this culture is like. This isn't for kids, and I'm testing that with my experience. And in the end, it's a job, it's a hobby, it's just an act at a club, and it's like, this has nothing to do with education. Why don't you put your kid in drama class? Put him in drama class or something. Because that's all it is. This isn't a lifestyle, it's a costume. Yep. It's a costume and a lip sync. That is what drag is, a costume and a lip sync. And I don't understand why is that so. It's become so culturally important. Yeah. It makes no sense to me.
Well, the way they take trans as an identity, they take it to mean the way I think normal people think of trans is if you are a trans person, if you have transitioned, if you've gone through the process, and they think of trans the way that we think of gay. For them, it's a internal, immutable characteristic of their personhood.
Yeah. Therefore, if you detrans, you were never real to begin with as a trans person.
That's why, again, the language is so important, and how we can't let them dominate the language, because they will use it to lie and distort and manipulate. Yep. And they're always changing the definitions of things and making arguments like trans women are women without allowing you to have the argument, to debate that point, to have a back and forth and exchange of ideas, and maybe, come to an agreement about some parts and a disagreement about others. They don't want you to do that. They want to force you into compliance. It's just a power game. I mean, Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals is like the textbook that they operate by. But they shut you down and shut you up.
And don't fall for it. So if you're someone and you're listening to this right now and you've been nervous about speaking out about these things, and you feel like, you might lose friends or family or whatever, like, you have people who will back you up. Take a leaf from Kitty's book, take a leaf from ours. You are fine. You are not a homophobe. You are not a transphobe for wanting to stand up for kids and to prevent them from doing something that's harmful.
Yeah, it's not misogynistic to point out that women are primarily driving this, that feminism is responsible for intersectional feminism, which is this idea that men can become men.
That's a whole other rabbit hole we don't want to go back into, but we did touch on that a bit.
Kitty, where can people find you? Where would you like them to look you up if they want to look you up and follow you?
You can find me, Kitty Demure, on all social media. The official Kitty Demure. You could write to me at I am Kitty Demure. I'm pretty much everywhere on all social media.
Okay, I'll put links in the description. And don't forget, everyone, to like comment, subscribe,
share, donate,
share.
Kitty, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and for your insights and for your humor. We appreciate it.
Keep going, never stop. You rock.
Thank you, and thanks for having a platform, getting the word out, and it's great. And more of us need to open our mouths, get out there, be active, and stand up for ourselves.
Yep. Yeah. And if you're ever in New York City, hit us up. We'd love to hang out. It'd be fun.
Totally, I will.
Gotta end the recording there, folks.
Later, guys.
Stay tuned. Bye bye.